bringing together national and subnational development banks, so NDBs and SDBs, how they can serve as the integration backbone of country platform for localizing finance. So we will hear concrete examples from Brazil, South Africa, and also international partners. Our session will be structured in two parts. So first, an introduction discussion, and then a moderated panel. So to start, I would like to welcome our two first speakers. So Carlos de Freitas, Executive Director of the FMDV, the Global Fund for Cities Development, and Bernard Bart, Program Coordinator, Climate Change and Urban Environment at UN Habitat. So to start, Carlos, as Executive Director of FMDV, could you please share with us why National DFIs platform as the country platform for localizing finance spine? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Audrey. Why? I don't know. Basically because it makes sense. Uh, no, thank you so much. First thing, I have to apologize, and I think Bernard is in the same case. We have negotiations ongoing, so we will leave just after the introduction. But the debate will be very interesting and relevant with a very nice panel and people. So just to say that we have been working to make sure that national and subnational development banks, especially national development banks with a mandate to work with local governments, to support them, are better recognized in the UN system, in all the different thematics of the system, but also, and in particular here, with the access to climate finance. Because we know the issues at the local level. The numbers, 80% of the GDP is produced in the cities. So basically the wealth of national economies depend on how well cities are doing, especially with climate and climate shocks. The issue we have is that capacity building is not at the subnational level yet ready to absorb this quantity of changes at the global level that is required by the international commitments. So we need financial engineering to be very, very close to the clientele, the last mile of climate action, which are local and regional governments. So subnational development banks, national development banks are the ones who are better fit for purpose, not the World Bank based in Washington to act in a country with 2-3 cities when you have so much demand. So what we have built is a global alliance, of course, and we have built somehow, we copy-pasted the international trend, the international wording on country platforms. Because this is a vocabulary that is integrated in the commitments, especially the Sevilla outcome document, the Sevilla commitment on financing for development. That means, and the G20 process also recognizes country platform as the entry point to make sure that national governments have a plan, have a strategy, and discusses this strategy implementation with the global players. And the key word in those documents is localization. Of course, localization is set from the global level to the national level. And we are going to the really last point of localization, which is the subnational component. And for this, we need those intermediaries that know about subnational governments, know about the techniques, know about the profile, the very specific profile of these players. So the idea is to put as a spine, as you said, Audrey, subnational development banks and national development banks has the core player in implementing whatever comes in country platforms that are urban inclusive, or when we can, to create country platforms for localizing finance, to make sure that the financial architecture we need, the channels for climate finance are built together with the clientele, with the local and regional governments and their associations at the national level. You know that now more and more NDCs, and this is the path Bernard space, are more and more urban inclusive. So that makes sense now to have the right tools, the right institutions that will build the capacity for local governments to enhance national ambitions. And this is what it is about in that conversation. You will have a lot of examples coming from SDBs and NDBs and especially the platforms that they are building at the national level. So we are at a time, just to finish, we are at a time where strategically, technically, institutionally, we are ready for the next step, for the next stage, which is building the concrete coordination of national players to support subnational governments. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think two main key points. The first one, localizing finance, and also the need for financial engineering to be very close to local actions. And to complete, I would like to ask you, Bernard Bart. So the global snapshot on urban on NDC 3.0 found that urban finance is one of the most widely referenced enablers of implementation, appearing in nearly half of submissions. How do you envisage the role of national and subnational development banks together with country platforms as highways for paradigm shift, in terms of enhancing the national ambition through local climate action? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Audrey, and thanks also, Carlos, for providing actually quite a bit of framing in response to Audrey's question already. I would like to maybe start off with zooming out and provide a few more facts and figures that have come out of our analysis of how finance is included. And if you allow me, just very briefly summarize the outcome of the finance segment of the ministerial meeting on urbanization and climate change that we had on the 11th, just 2 days ago, because we hadn't planned for this meeting on the 11th to be a precursor for this, but exactly what we're talking about has come out very, very strongly. And then I will get back to your question, but I try to do that in the time that I have, and I apologize for some of those. I will need to look at my screen here. So as you've said, we had at the time that we analyzed the NDC 3.0, only 67 of the NDCs available by the middle of October, and 46 of them have the urban finance included. We see more broadly that strong urban content has doubled in the NDCs. Finance has also almost doubled, but with 46%, it's still, of course, relatively low, because we all know how important the urban finance dimension is towards the implementation of the NDCs. Maybe even more important is that the NDCs acknowledge the need for stronger local investments. They do not really articulate a coherent mechanism for delivery. And I think that's exactly where our conversation needs to set in. So the way it is framed in the NDCs, and of course this is a very generalized statement, is that finance is framed as a condition for implementation, but it's not really developed as a means of implementation. And I think this is where we need to get to in this conversation. Now, moving to the recommendations that have come out of the finance roundtable that were then fed into the closing plenary of the urban ministerial meeting, and we hope to have a fairly strongly articulation in the summary of the chair that will hopefully be published today. Sorry, a few too many hopefullys in that sentence. It's all work in progress, and in fact the reason why I need to leave this meeting early. So point number one, multi-level finance is the foundation for NDC delivery. With all of the details on how that needs to reach the most important sectors, the most vulnerable communities, the most important pathways for low carbon development. Aligning a financial system for local readiness is the second key outcome, the second recommendation out of that particular meeting, and it's about the harmonization of the networks from global to local, but also at the country level. Again, as if this was in preparation for the meeting that we're having here. Then financing, just inclusive transitions is critical. And then bridging national local finance planning systems, going into a little bit more detail in terms of how that can work out. So I think the framing is very clear. I think with that, Carlos and I have almost answered your question. We have a few of the platforms emerging. They seem to be really a mechanism to tie all of these challenges, recommendations together that I've mentioned. We now need to really have a few good examples, the way that you're going to describe them, and we need to move to scale. We have a few, and I think many of the very good examples are represented here in this space. We collectively, UN Habitat with the city networks, are going to move very quickly into the implementation of the urban content of the NDCs. If this is specific plans that are linked to the low emission development strategies, or if they are local level implementation plans of the NDCs, this will start immediately after the COP or early next year, and bringing the finance mechanism, bringing the platforms as one of the means of implementation into the design of the NDC rollout is fundamentally important. Unfortunately, I can't join you. I had blocked the time, but things have evolved. But I'm looking forward to hearing from you and see how we can connect.
Thank you so much, Bernard. Just for those who were not here yesterday, we launched the casebook of some national development banks delivering climate finance, banking the last mile. So you have the fans, you have the QR code, so please download it and you will learn much more about the platforms at the national level, especially the Brazilian one that is put there, and other cases coming directly from the financial instruments that are put together by those players to support some national climate action. Thank you so much.
So much, Carlos and Bernard. Thank you for coming and joining us for framing the landscape of our discussion today. I would like now to invite our panelists coming. So, Mr. Constant Arbonne, please, if you can join us, Olympus Montata. And we will also have other panelists coming later on and 2 panelists online. Thank you so much for joining us. So to start, let's now dive deeper into practice through our high-level panel. So each panelist today will share concrete experiences showing how this platform works in real life, aligning climate finance with local needs and building systemic change. So to start, I will start with you, Olympus Montata, Head of Climate and Environmental Finance at the DBSA, Development Bank of Southern Africa. And I will have one question. So from a DFI perspective, how does DBSA see country platforms enabling stronger alignment between national priorities and the financing needs of local governments? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the invitation. In February this year, am I audible now? Thank you very much. In February this year, the DBSA, together with the Presidential Climate Commission and the JET-PMU, held a summit around country platform exchange in Cape Town. And one of the things that came out of that meeting was what they referred to as 4 critical success factors for country platforms. So I wanted to respond to your question within the context of those critical success factors. The first one that they referenced was the importance of country ownership, the importance of ensuring that country platforms are country-led. And the next thing that was emphasized under country ownership was alignment of national development plans with climate plans. And thirdly was the integration into the broader economic strategy and not just solely climate. And I thought that was quite instructive in the sense that it gives direction in terms of how you build these platforms. And for me, it was quite aligned with the approach that we have from a DBSA point of view in terms of our approach to support to subnational governments. What we do from a DBSA point of view is to support especially municipalities starting from the planning stage that leads to their integrated infrastructure plans. And what we try to do is to ensure that from a planning stage, it is done in an integrated manner to reflect climate imperatives in terms of how those plans will be rolled out. And it's quite interesting now that with the Climate Change Act being promulgated, there is a requirement that you start to see the reflection of exactly that within the plans of municipalities. So the work that we do start to assist municipalities to respond to that. The next success factor that was identified was justice and equity, which I believe is quite key. And the thing is really to ensure that just transition is not just an afterthought, but it's really an integral part of the work that is being done. So your social and economic impact of climate action is clearly captured. And I think that is quite important. And in that regard, there's important work that from a DBSA point of view, we are currently undertaking together with the Presidential Climate Commission. And it's really around the design of a just transition financing mechanism. The idea is really to say, if you're going to be effective driving a just transition, especially within the subnational space, you need to clearly identify those that are impacted. You need to clearly characterize that and understand what the impact is, what the solutioning is, and from that, build appropriate financing instruments that could be able to respond to the challenges. The third critical success factor that was identified was really around the building of the capital stack. And this really talked more to how to use the limited grants and concessional resources to, in the main, unlock private sector financing at scale. And I think that is an important contribution, especially from a subnational space. I'm sure you'd be aware that especially when you start talking about, financing adaptation initiatives, financing, depending on how it is designed, could be a challenge. And, from a DBSA point of view, what we've been really working on is starting to see a lot of emphasis around the design of outcome-based bonds in a way that allow your traditional investors who are interested in advancing impact to find mechanisms that could combine both, risk-return considerations with impact. And so we are starting to look a lot more on that to see how we support even the subnational space. And lastly, what was identified as a critical success factors for country platforms was that they should have a multi-sector approach. I think that was quite interesting, and I looked at our experience and thought we have in the main, from a DBSA point of view, looked at, in the main single sector approach. But what was interesting was that as much as the starting point would have been a single sector approach, it actually creates a platform from which you start to look at other sectors. As an example, we would have seeded, an office to facilitate independent power producer office, which was really looking at electricity in the main. But what we have seen is that the very same basics that we have put in place are quite instructive now in us rolling out a water reuse program. So what started as a single sector approach is benefiting a more multi-sector approach, and of course quite key in how you respond to the needs of subnational space. So I thought looking at these critical success factors gives you sort of a scaffolding that you can look at in designing how you use country platform to benefit subnational space. Thank you.
So much for this insight. I think it's really important to highlight what you said about how you support cities from the planning stage, but also how it's very important to build proper financial instruments, and what you were mentioning regarding the multi-sector approach. Indeed, that it's really essential regarding the implementation of country platforms. Now we will have someone online. Sorry. No. Okay, so we will move to the video of Megan Spires. So she is the Director of Climate Change, Energy and Resilience at ICLEI Africa. So for you, Benjamin and Olympus, it will be just behind you. Yes, but we will hear her from the headset. So what we asked to Megan Spires, so to ICLEI Africa, is how ICLEI has long supported cities in project preparation. So how can national DFIs platforms avoid duplicating this work and instead build on it? And also, what are the most common bottlenecks LRGs face that country platforms for localizing finance can realistically remove in the next year? So we will have a 4 minutes video from ICLEI Africa. I think we do have a technical problem. Thank you so much, Olympus. So maybe we will move, so sorry for that, directly to Constant Arbon, and we will come back to the video of ICLEI Africa. So Constant Arbon, as a program officer at AFD, we would love you to talk about the NUCA program and to have information about this program, and also to share with us how NUCA program promotes NDB city partnerships, and where do NDBs most struggle when asked to interpret urban challenges as investment opportunities. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. So, NUCA, that stands for National Development Bank's Urban Climate Action, as a program developed by the IDFC facility. So this coalition of public development banks, and happened to arrive thanks to the support of the German government through the International Climate Initiative, who developed this program for 5 geographies. And in each geography, in each country, we're working with one national or regional development bank. So in the case of South Africa, we're working with the team of Olympus at the BSA. In the case of Mozambique, we're working with TDB, Trade and Development Bank. In Indonesia, we're working with PTSMI. In Colombia with CAF, and in Brazil with BNDES, in order to support these banks to finance directly municipalities. So these banks are already financing municipalities. So how can we support them doing so? NUCA stands on 3 pillars. The first one is, as Olympus was mentioning, there is a shortage of concessional funds and grants. So supporting them with feasibility studies in order to bring urban climate project to the stage of feasibility and bankability, for then these national banks in be able to finance through a loan these projects. So we have identified in each of these countries and each of these banks a few intermediary cities that usually have less access to finance, and we have identified several urban climate projects, and we are about to launch the first feasibility studies just to make sure that some of these projects will arrive at a level of maturity, of bankability that will lead to a loan. In order to do so, we're not only working with national development banks, but also subnational. So in a few geographies, and it's in the case of Brazil, we're working with ABD and a network of sub-regional development banks. And in the case of Mozambique, we're also working with BNI. A second pillar is through technical assistance with the banks. So NUCA is supporting them in creating new tools or financing mechanism, in creating new climate finance frameworks, processes, in order also to align the different banks on the same level of standard, which is kind of the ultimate goal of IDFC. And also we have the third pillar, which is much more linked on peer learning activities and knowledge exchange. So in each of these countries, we have one peer learning activity and workshop every year, and one international peer learning exchange, which we're having the first one happening in Colombia on early December, where Olympus is joining us, and a few webinars, workshops, and training to kind of mainstream the results of the program, and so that if we manage to develop one tool of one financing mechanism in one country, that it can benefit to the other ones. Well, I hope that was clear enough, and thank you very much for the question.
Thank you very much, Consta. I think it's really clear how NUCA is supporting NDBs and SDBs, and how you are also working on this peer-to-peer learning. And during the session also yesterday, I think it was very clear, because we talked about the NUCA program, how also this peer-to-peer learning is accessible from all SDBs and DBs online. So there is also this resources for free accessible. So I think it's really important also to raise this.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, maybe I didn't mention that we're also trying to go further than just the NDBs, obviously working directly with the municipalities, but with also other stakeholders that are working on urban climate finance in each country. So obviously working hand in hand with the ministries, either of finance, local authorities, working also with the private sector, because we do have strong commitment into bringing the private sector in and creating co-financing for these urban climate projects, that we don't want only the national and the subnational development banks to be able to finance it, but we create synergies with private banks or funds to be able to bring them in into the financing of local governments, which is not always the case in each countries.
Now we will, thank you so much, Constant. Now we will move to Alain Beauvillard. So sorry, because I think it's just here. Thank you so much for joining us. So I'm very welcome. I'm sorry, really delighted to welcome you, Alain Beauvillard, so Director of Strategy, Policy and Innovation at the Green Climate Fund, to be here today to talk about GCF's LLCA, Locally Led Climate Action, guidelines aligning vertical climate funds with the financial intermediation opportunity. Thanks again. And I will have two questions for you today. So LLCA guidance highlights the importance of durable institutional capacity at local level. So how can national DFI platforms contribute to building these long-term capabilities? And also, how can LLCA guidelines support the accreditation, strengthening or recognition of SDBs, subnational DFIs, so they become credible intermediaries for channeling GCF resources to the local level? This is
2 minutes, right?
Yeah. No, you have 8 minutes if you want. It's okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much for inviting the GCF in this discussion. Just maybe short introduction to GCF, like in 1 minute. GCF, as you may know, is the largest multilateral climate fund as of today. We have been created and established at Cancun, COP16. First project launched exactly 10 years ago, just before the Paris Agreement. First project in Peru. And since then, over the last 10 years, we developed a portfolio of total like 19 billions, and leveraging on top like 3 times more. So overall, we have almost like 80 billions portfolio. About 230 projects worldwide, all emerging and developing economies. So 130 countries, and with a strong focus both on adaptation and mitigation. This is 50-50 in our portfolio, and this is very important because we want to keep this balance to tackle both issues in the same way. I think besides the size, of course, size matters, and we want to carry on like scaling up the project and pushing for more volumes. But we want also to focus on 2 very important things, and this is where the LLCA is important for us. One is access. I mean, in the DNA of the GCF, we want to work with many implementing partners. As of today, we have 160, almost 160 implementing partners. And this is going from big international institutions like MDBs, UN agency, and so on, down to local players. Could be like ministers, could be local development banks, or really like local NGOs. And the same way, we want to work with public and private entities, including like, private equity firms, for example. And these are like partners that are implementing projects with us. So it's a very broad network of implementing partners. And they're deeply rooted on the ground. Out of these 160, more than 100 are direct access entities. So regional, local, or even subnational entities. So it's very important for us to work with this player. The second thing is the country ownership. I mean, many people here will talk about country ownership. But what does it mean at the end? I mean, for us, it means like 2 main things. One thing is the capacity building. We want to help the country to have an own capacity, to develop their own capacity. We have today like probably one of the largest capacity building envelope. The readiness program is 500 millions. For each country, it's 7 million to be used till 2027. And basically, we're encouraging the country to tap into this capacity building envelope to develop local capacity. And the second element that we are developing is the country platforms. Let me just like talk 1 minute about that because it's very important. We'll be launching on Saturday with Brazil an event on country platform when actually 17 countries will announce new platforms. You've been hearing about country platform for many, many years. I mean, you may remember the G20 report from the so-called Taman report 2017, when it was already like thinking that country platform should be an instrument to coordinate the effort of, all the players. So there have been like several platforms like the JetPs, then you had Nuefe in Egypt, and many country developing platforms. I mean, what we're trying to do, and I think Brazil was the best example, was to launch a platform where basically the country at the core of the platform. It's not like an MDB or an external player coming to say, you have to set up a platform and we impose the agenda and we impose the pipeline of project. This is not at all what we want to do. What we have been designing with Brazil, and this was launched at the annual meeting last year, is a platform where basically GCF is coming to finance the platforms. And the country is deciding who is sitting in the core of the platform. Brazilian decided to put BNDES in the core of the platform, basically to define which sector they want to prioritize. And Brazil decided to focus on 3 sectors, as you may know: nature-based solution, energy, and industrial decarbonization. And it was their decision. It was not imposed externally by anybody. And then they started to develop their project pipeline. As of today, so 1 year after launching the platform, they have a project pipeline of 16 projects, an overall volume of about 20 billions. Yeah, and one of the projects was already announced last week in Sao Paulo, BNDES Equity. And this is very important for us because we finance the platform, but we don't decide about what is the agenda of the platform. This is completely country-led. And then the country should also decide with which partners they want to implement the project. Of course, the GCF can be here and co-financing. We have all kind of instruments, can do like grant, potential loans, equity, guarantee, result-based payment. But if the country doesn't want to work with GCF, it also has the freedom to go with any other players. It could be like MDB, local development bank, local NGO, and so on and so forth. And again, the platform is like flexible enough to accommodate all kind of sectors, as long as you have like a connection with the NDC and NAPSO and LTS. So of course, you need to have the climate agenda at the core of the platform. So this was very appealing once the Brazilian launched the platform. We received like requests from 40 countries to have similar platform, very country driven. And now on Saturday, we'll have the launch of this 17. And we believe, again, this will be kind of an experiment that is going now large scale. We believe this could be like the new way of thinking about locally led climate actions, because you will have the country in the leadership, and you will have, of course, players like the GCF and any other players ready to support that. The last point I want to mention, you see I will be short, is the partnership that we're doing with Finance in Common. We've been participating to the Finance in Common Summit. Mafalda Duarte, Executive Director, was there in South Africa, because we believe these are the players on the ground that we need to leverage to have the locally led climate actions. We're talking about players who first have the knowledge of the country, who are aligned with the national priority, who have the connection politically, economically, who know the business structures, and also who have a lot of like financial powers. I mean, if you look at the balance sheet of all the Finance in Common players, it's about like 20 trillions. So we believe these are the players that we could empower and leverage to deploy at scale on the ground the money that is needed to close the climate gap. So and this is the reason why we're first expanding the network of our implementing partners, focusing very much on the Finance in Common players. Yeah, I think these are the few things that we're thinking about and that we are moving. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alain. I think it's really interesting what you were saying about GCF, that is involving partners both from public and private sectors, and also, of course, the partnership with Finance in Common platform. I think to say again that indeed on Saturday, so 17 country platform will be announced. I think it's at 12:30. Room San Francisco, South Francisco. Okay. So I think it would be very, very interesting to be here and to participate in. So sorry, we had technical issue for the video from ICLEI Africa, but we will post it on LinkedIn afterwards. Sorry for that. And so now I don't know if there are any questions.
Thank you. About the GCF event this Saturday that you mentioned earlier, thank you. I'm with Team Somalia and I've been listening, and I would really like to come. I understood that you said about 60 countries, 70 countries. Does that mean that all of those countries who applied for are there, or did you have to leave some behind? And if so, what was the main criteria of the choosing of those? Thank you.
We don't choose the country. Again, it's a complete country-owned process. So 40 countries, about 40 countries expressed interest when we launched the...
Thank you to the organisers for convening this important event and for having ICLEI. I'm so sorry not to be able to be with you all in person. The topic of this session is really important and speaks to ICLEI's ongoing work, where we support over 2,500 member and network cities, towns and regions on their journeys of implementation. We all know implementation requires finance. Our experiences to date have led to 3 key messages, which I will share with you today and I hope are helpful. The first message, as this event makes clear, national coordination is crucial. Only when we have linked our work focused on developing high-quality, locally developed projects with nationally coordinated processes have we seen success. One useful example comes from Cameroon, where, with funding from IDRC, our focus has been on finance for adaptation, working closely with FACOM, the government entity responsible for subnational financial flows. Where together, we have improved the quality of calls for proposals by asking the right questions. We have improved transparency and evidence-based decision-making by developing a tool.
Director of Cooperation in FACOM in Cameroon, Special Fund, Support Fund for Local Authorities. And just to say that we are ready to work with DBSA because we met you last February in Cape Town. And we had like to go forward for, yes, to have, we have a lot of things to do together. The same for IDFC. We met yesterday, and there are some solutions we can have, some projects we can develop together, and the same with Green Climate Fund, because we have readiness maybe for 3 years, but the problem is that the government of Cameroon asked us to go with adaptation fund first, and we hope that when we'll finish it, we'll go with a fast-track process to Green Climate Fund, and it will be a pleasure to work with you. Thank you.
Hi, hello. I am Carolina. I'm from Colombia. Actually, we're going to be launching our country platform on Saturday also. But I would like to ask you to tell us about an event on Colombia on February or March. Can you detail more, please? Thank you.
So, indeed, so every year for the NUGA program, we are having all the IDFC banks involved in the program, doing the steering committee. So it's hosted at CAF on the 6th of December. But in the case of Colombia, we're also actually working also with 2 other banks, which are Findeter and FDN. And with them, we're gonna organize a peer learning activity, and with DBSA and the other banks that I've mentioned, on the 8th and 9th of December. Well, if you're interested to be coming, we're actually going to have a focus on putting criterias for urban climate project selection. So we'll have hosting a training on this topic. As we're finalizing the selections of the projects we want to finance through the feasibility studies, we're hosting a workshop on that matter, and we're having also site visits on specific urban climate projects that have been financed so far around Bogota. So I'll very happy invite you to come.
I don't know if you want to react to the question also from Jean-Alois Violet, maybe to react. So also to say that Cameroon operationalized the country platform for localizing finance, Financial City platform in Cameroon on last Tuesday. So I think it's also something to highlight. And indeed, about to say with DBSA, you also have a Pan-African mandate. So I think it's indeed very interesting to have these peer-to-peer meetings and capacity building activities. So thank you for this. I don't know if you have any other comments or reactions, or if there are any other questions.
Thank you. Again, I work for the World Resources Institute. With the CHAMP initiative, we have been wondering actually, we asked 35 cities in Colombia how they can achieve or how they can go and work with the country platform more near. And the problem was that in the national level, they do not have the capacity to have a strong pipeline of projects, only on energy and transport, but agriculture, health, environment, adaptation, they do not have this kind of pipeline. So what will be your recommendation or suggestion to really go to these national governments and to really move the action agenda? Thank you.
That's an excellent question. What we are, I didn't mention that, but when we launched the country platforms on Saturday, at the end of the event, we have a segment when we're launching what we call the knowledge hub on the country platforms. The knowledge hub is a hub that is actually driven mostly at the moment by Brazil, South Africa, and Uganda. And the idea is to have a south-south best practice exchanges between the different countries who launch platforms. And you will see that among the country launching platforms, many have similar questions. It will be very interesting for you to see how they solve these issues. Some of them, they have a very strong local development bank, like BNDS, who is able to make the link between the national level and the subnational level for such topic. Some others, they don't have that. So they went for external consultant. They went for external support. Could be the World Bank, could be MDBs, could be other local development bank from the regions, for example. And this will be interesting to see for your country what could be the best fit. And again, it's not an external agenda that we want to impose. It's up to you to discuss with other peer groups across South-South knowledge sharing to identify what is the best model for you. I insist on that. I mean, the country platform model that we are launching now based on the Brazil is really like country owned. So it's up to you to find the best suited model that fits to your countries. But we launched the knowledge hub to enable you to find and to explore different solutions that have been implemented across all the different platforms, okay, with the South-South knowledge-based exchange. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there other questions? So thank you for being here today. Thank you to our panelists so much. You can applaud. And so thank you. I think we've seen how national DFI platforms can serve as powerful mechanisms to localize finance, aligning global and national commitments with local realities, and ultimately ensure that climate finance reaches the territories where transformation and local adaptation must happen. So thank you so much again. See you on Saturday and at all our different sessions. Thank you so much.